Hello, this is Catherine Dubberly, the Answer Lady. I'm a big fan of KISS looms, and I am cooperating with Kelly at KISS to present to you a whole series of looming techniques especially for KISS. We're going to do this on all sorts of KISS looms so you get to see every basic technique on your own loom. Welcome and enjoy. Here is a fine gauge FG number 1 KISS loom. Let's do some cast-ons on it. Normally we would use this thin yarn, a number 1 sock yarn, on this loom. But because I think it will make it easier for you to see, I'm going to attempt to use a number 4 worsted weight yarn. I would not really try to knit with this. It would make a dense and unpleasant fabric. But I think it may be possible to cast on and you'll be able to see. Most cast-ons begin with a little bit of a loop in them to pop on the first peg. So we'll make that. Let's do the simplest and best known cast-on first, the E-wrap. Drop the loop down on the first peg, push that tail down out of the way, and begin to make the cursive letter E around each peg. Every time you work, go behind the pin, around the peg, between the pin and the peg to the back, and there's your completed loop. Let's do that again. Behind the pin, come front around the peg, back around the peg. If you were to go around both the peg and the pin, you would make yourself a snarl that would be hard to knit over. So make sure that you always just treat the pegs as spacers. And actually, going this direction, I'm making the backwards cursive letter E. Now from this point, it would unravel if I let it go, so I mustn't. But I can immediately U-wrap my first row of stitches, which is behind the peg, behind the pin, in front of the peg. Behind the pin, in front of the peg. Pin, peg. And that's making like a letter U for each knit stitch. Start with a little loop, about the size that a stitch would be. Place it on the first peg you intend to use. Behind the pin, around the peg, making the letter E. Behind and around, behind and around. Ideally, you want to keep a little bit of tension on the yarn so that it doesn't just spiral up and unwind. But if you could put too much, especially in this fine gauge, it'll be nearly impossible to knit the row off. Let's see how I did. I'm going to U-wrap the row. U-wrap, that might have been hard to hear. I let my fingers follow the wrapping, the fingers of the other hand, so that they can sort of keep it in place, especially till I get this first stitch anchored over. Don't do what I did. I split that stitch. And there we go. Our row is cast on.